to the UIAAA Connection podcast. GoFan and VNN are proud to be the exclusive sponsor of the UIAAA Connection. Now a combined company, GoFan and VNN provide a seamless integration for digital ticketing and athletic websites. Direct your fans to one place for all your athletic events, communications, and tickets to home and away games. Thank you to GoFan and VNN for their exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I'm your host, Mark Hutch Hunter. Today we have as our special guest Ron Gualtier, Certified Athletic Administrator, the Director of Athletics at Mound Fort Junior High School in Ogden, Utah. Welcome to the podcast, Ron.
Thank you.
Let's have you begin by sharing with our audience here in the United States and across the world where you grew up, where you went to school, your first job, etc.
Well, I grew up, I was part of a military family, but the huge portion of my formidable years, I grew up in Iowa. As far as the things we did there, it was very highly touted and pushed that we do athletics. A lot of good support growing up for athletics. My first job was actually when I was a kid. It was detasseling is what it was called. When I was 13 years old is when I first went out and started making money for to help my family. And that's the kind of job that is ideal. If we could have all of our young athletes do something like detasseling, holy cow, it would be a whole different ball of wax. It's really a lot of work involved there. Growing up in Iowa, I went into flooring as an adult. Took me a while to join back into the education side of things. After I started coaching, it was when I kind of finalized that idea that I wanted to be an educator as well.
What city in Iowa then? Was it Des Moines or Ames or?
It was nearest to, we were in the east central area near Cedar Rapids. We were kind of out on the farm in between Iowa City and Cedar Rapids. So we grew up Hawkeyes, always going over to Iowa City for all of our medical and dental stuff.
Okay. Did you have a chance as a young athlete in that rural community to play any youth sports like basketball, football, baseball, or?
I started wrestling when I was 8 years old. We had them in the community run through the schools. We actually had, as a third grader when I started, we actually had a teacher who rolled out some mats in the old film room at lunchtime and took us in and started teaching us wrestling during our lunch period.
That's excellent. Where did you go to college then? Iowa or?
No, I actually was accepted. I was planning to come out and wrestle for Utah State after I graduated. And actually, I had planned on serving an LDS mission at that time. So I was going to be 2 years after my graduation in 88 when I'd actually be up there. And that 88, 89 year is when the wrestling program got dropped. So I ended up attending Utah State years later, but didn't have that opportunity to compete.
Perfect. So then what brings a born and raised Iowa kid, came to Utah State to school? So you just stayed and got a job afterwards, or how did that work?
Well, it was actually ended up, our family actually lost our farm right as I graduated and determined they were going to move out here. And that's where I had already determined to go to school. To be honest, I didn't feel like I was quite good enough to compete like at the University of Iowa or Ames. And back, we had USA Wrestling magazine in our library at school. And Greg Williams happened to wrestle for Utah State and became an All-American. And when I saw a guy from Utah State in the pictures on the podium, I decided, hey, that'd be a great place to go to school. I can go out and live in the mountains and still wrestle. So it all kind of came together. The whole family ended up out here at that point.
Well, Iowa's huge in wrestling, obviously, as everybody knows. And so that's, I think, there's not even a university in Utah that has college wrestling anymore, is there? 'Cause I think BYU's even dropped it, or have they kept it?
Actually, UVU, they were re-sanctioned a handful of years ago after a 7-year probationary period. Down at UVU, we've actually had, I think it's 3, maybe even 4 All-Americans now at this point. Just got a new coach this year. So they're really growing and doing well in snow. And I believe Utah Tech both have wrestling programs that have just started over the last couple of years.
Excellent. Let's have you talk for a minute, Ron, about some of the mentors and leaders you had in your growing up and in your professional life that made a difference for you.
There's really 3 that really stand out to me. I had an English teacher as a senior in high school. She was a coach of some of the girls' teams, and we just got along so well that she was the first person to ever kind of even put in my mind that maybe I might be a teacher. So she was incredibly valuable. Once I started coaching, my first coaching position was up at Skyview in 1995 with Dave Swenson,
Okay.
who is literally probably one of the top 2 human beings I've ever known. He was absolutely fantastic in teaching me what coaching should look like. And then these last few years, where I feel like I've made a lot of progress as far as being an athletic administrator is because of my district AD, who many people are going to know, Mitch Arquette. So those 3 people really have just dominated my life as far as mentorship.
That's excellent. Let me ask you a personal question here for a second, Ron. What's your biggest failure or disappointment in life, and what exactly did you learn from that?
When I was thinking about this, I thought, boy, I mean, there's so many big failures, some of them probably not even really great to talk about in a public setting. But when I think about athletics, in particular, it was actually, again, my senior year in high school that I think has taught me the most. I was having to lose. Some people are going to be familiar with what wrestling looked like in the 80s. We were weight loss specialists as much as we were wrestlers. And I would have to, because of the eating like a pig all weekend long after weigh-ins, I'd have to come in on Monday morning and lose 24 pounds that week.
Wow.
I had some physical issues, and about halfway through the season, there became where it was a constant struggle. And I had missed a weight. And at that point, the coach came to me and said, well, the team has voted that we can't let you move up a weight. Even though I had already won the spot and was told that ahead of time, that if the weight was a problem, I would have my spot back. And I think what I learned from it is I didn't understand how to go in and kind of speak for myself and talk to the coach and the team. It was just kind of it was a give up, you know. And really what that taught me, I mean, besides the physical of being completely dedicated to understanding what our athletes are going through physically, particularly in wrestling with weight control. No, we're not going to be losing that kind of weight, those types of things. But really the idea that I want all the athletes that I deal with, whether it's coaching or in this position, that they know I'm someone who they can talk to, that we will deal, the coaches, the parents, the athletes all feel like, hey, whatever happens, he's going to be here for me. He's going to be able to help me make the most of it, defend me when it comes to that. So really going through that, not understanding how to advocate for myself, I felt like that's an important thing that I need to make sure that I'm willing to do and to teach our athletes now.
Thank you for sharing that. You mentioned earlier that you had spent some time outside of education before you got into education. Talk a little bit about that, and then talk about, I think you said your first job was with Skyview. So how do you go from there then to becoming an athletic administrator at a junior high or middle school?
Well, I coached there for a number of years, and Dave, again, as my mentor, after the first couple of years, he said, "Ron, why aren't you getting your teaching degree?" And I was laying flooring, and it was a situation where I was literally working until it was a new construction, a huge townhome development. I'd work till 2 o'clock in the morning, run home, get up at 5, and come right back trying to get this work done. And I realized I was in so much pain that I couldn't keep it up. And so I went in and applied at Utah State, got accepted, decided, yeah, I've thought about being a teacher. I love coaching. I want to make this a combination. So that's what I did is I went back to school to get that degree. About 11 years ago is when a position opened up down here in Ogden out at Mill Creek. That's actually the prison, the school that's run within the adolescent prison. So I was the PE teacher out there. The next year I had an opportunity to move out at Mound Fort because I wanted that opportunity to coach and be a part of the kids' lives. And just, I think it was my second year here, I just decided, and I can't remember the discussions, who all I was particularly visiting with, but I knew athletic administration was something that, was interesting to me. So I actually started attending the UIAAA just on my own dime with my own time and taking LPC courses and just trying to learn and develop the skill set that I would need. And then the job came up here at the school and the principal said, "Hey, I need you. Are you willing to do it?" And I just kind of jumped right in, and I had already been running with it. So I was able to kind of hit the ground running because I already had a certain amount of background, at least in the educational side of it.
That's excellent. Let's talk for a minute how the job has either changed or it's the same since you first became an athletic administrator.
I mean, it's been about 7 years. And I don't think at the roots part for me and in my position that I see a great deal of change, except for the opportunities for education that seem to be constantly expanding. The new LTI courses that are added every year or two, and the opportunities we have here in the state and nationally to take those. So it seems like that educational side of things is what I've seen really beneficial growth in. I know that with the implementation of new sports that we're having, our ADs, particularly at the high school level, are definitely seeing, you're just getting more workloads. With the expansion of sports, there's going to be more work to do. And so just in the 7 years, we've had a number of sports, the lacrosse, the women's wrestling, that have come into play here in Utah, and it's just been outstanding. So I think the growth of our athletics is probably about the biggest change that I've seen.
Very good. I want you to talk for a minute about your journey with the UIAAA. So you're one of the few people that I know that began to attend the conference on your own dime. Usually the school sends you. So my question that you can expand on is, how did you hear about the UIAAA? Because this would have been long before Mitch was there, probably back when Ken Crawford maybe was the district AD, or maybe even before that. So talk about how that happened and talk about your journey with the UIAAA.
I know how it happened. Ken Crawford was over the athletics, but he had a Jethro Helmbrecht was there at the time at the district level over PE and athletics under Ken. But I had actually, my principal out at Mill Creek, his name was Benji Carrier. He was actually come through Heber City and some Wasatch Wrestling when he came to Utah out of Indiana. And he had been, I'm not sure if it was here at Mound Fort, somewhere he spent just a very brief moment of time as an athletic director. And so as my principal, he and I got talking about it. And that's when I found the conference and decided, that would be a neat way for me to go. And until I have the opportunity, I may as well start getting involved. I was coaching wrestling still, so I knew there was going to be a benefit to learning what athletic administrators do and what those jobs look like. And so I just jumped on board and got into it. now, the more I do it, the more I'm seeing very familiar faces. As an
Sure.
official now, I get to go out into the schools and see the athletic directors that I see all the time at our conferences and clinics and stuff. So as a junior high guy, you're kind of not really part of that group because the high schools all get together, they have their regions and all those kinds of things. So I'm kind of on the outside looking in a lot, and the longer I'm with it, the more people become more familiar. They see me now as an official coming into their school, and we have things to talk about. So it's really kind of a neat little another section of a new family, that we kind of have as athletic administrators. We're dealing with a lot of the same things, so there's a lot to talk about and learn from. So dealing with the UIAAA, here at home has just been awesome.
Ron, I want you to talk about the importance of becoming certified. And one of the reasons I'm asking you is in Utah, as in probably a lot of states, we don't have a whole lot of middle school or junior high ADs. And I would say of the junior high or middle school ADs, we have even less than that are certified. So I want you to talk about that, talk about the importance of certification and how you became certified.
Um, Again, for me, I really kind of look at, if we put the NFHS with the UIAAA and the NIAAA as one group, and then the National Strength and Conditioning Association. Those are the two groups that I work with, that I have my certifications with. And what I've learned is they're just incredible. The groups, the organizations offer so much to help us be better at our jobs, be knowledgeable. That the second I started realizing how close I was as far as, the courses I had taken toward meeting those criteria, it was kind of a no-brainer. I thought, I want the evidence that I'm working and that I have knowledge of what I'm doing, as a career prospect. So to me, it was a necessary step. I don't think as athletic administrators, if we're not making that progress on an annual basis, continuing our education, that we're just going to fall behind. And what we do, just there's too much value in it. There's too many people involved to run the risk of just not being as knowledgeable as we can possibly be.
Yeah, thank you for your perspective on that. That's well said. Let me have you talk to our audience now about your journey to becoming a national instructor for the NIAAA. Regular listeners to this program know that doesn't happen very often. We have, I think, maybe 7 or 8 in Utah out of all of our ADs, you being one of them. So talk about how that happened, because that's really a feather in your cap, particularly since you're at the junior high, middle school level. So speak about that.
Yeah, it's something I when I see the people instructing, it kind of automatically gave me a sense of pride that maybe I know what I'm doing a little bit, if people can see that in me. But I was actually taking that particular LTC at 627. It's the administering the strength and conditioning program. I was taking that course. I mean, that's where a lot of my background is, and my desires and passions are. So I took that LTC at the national conference. Devin Wendell, who's the chair, he was teaching it, and he was almost by himself. One of the other, Nate, was having to do some other things, so he came and went. But basically, Devin was there to teach the entire 4-hour course. Prior to the course starting, I got there a little early, and as we started visiting, and he realized I was a certified strength and conditioning specialist, which is one of the things we talk about in that course. He kind of relied on me. It felt like, and we kind of had a lot of discussion between us during the course, and after that, he asked me about being an instructor for the course because they needed people who were knowledgeable of the information. And he felt like, we might be able to work well together, and it would be nice to have somebody who could come in and help teach that. So it was just a total uh, lucky shot that I happened to be in the right place at the right time, and it happened to be something I was passionate about. And so I went through the process, the application process and whatnot to do that, and was accepted. And so now I've had the opportunity to teach that at the last two national conferences, and then one or two of the webinars that go on throughout the year.
Very good. So, what would your advice be to those here in Utah and anyone else listening to this podcast if you have interest in becoming a national faculty member? Advice to them.
I would say look for the course that kind of really drives your passion the most, because I think those things we're passionate about, we tend to understand the best or have the most desire to learn more. So it's amazing if you get into somewhere you're comfortable, you can be a fantastic instructor, and it's not a great deal of like strain or fear or anxiety or anything, because it's something you're comfortable with. I wouldn't want to jump into one of the law ones; those are terrifying. But if it's something you're understanding and something you do well and something you're passionate about, I would. It's a lot of fun. We really get to work with some great people when we are involved with those faculties.
Very well said. Let me ask you this, Ron. What's one common myth about athletic administration that you would like to debunk to the general public?
I think that kind of goes back to literally the term you just used, because even I've said in the last few minutes, athletic director. And I know that when I first started attending the UIAAA, I can't remember what the session was, what was being talked about, but it was brought up that really we're athletic administrators, and something we need to start doing is looking for our administration credentials. And I literally came home and started looking, and year and a half, I think it was later, I had my master's in educational administration. I think athletic directors in general, because partially because of the terminology, I think a lot of them are looked on as glorified coaches, and people don't understand the work and the amount of time and energy and intelligence it takes to safely run athletic programs. In We're absolutely administrators of athletics, and I think a simple title understanding of what these men and women are doing is incredibly valuable.
What's the favorite part of your job, Ron?
Boy, that's tough, because I mean, trying to build the programs when you see success. I mean, my girls basketball team had me in tears a few weeks ago talking to them, because they were just getting annihilated. And in the fourth quarter, they stuck with it. They stuck it out. They kept working as a team. They outscored the other opponent by double. They still lost the game. But I told them how proud I was and how incredible it was that what they're doing. And to see the growth. I mean, the girls wrestling is a tidal wave across our entire nation. And to be a part of these young people doing the things they're doing, there's nothing better other than when my kids did it. It's absolutely wonderful to watch these kids learn and grow, feel successful, feel like they've won, all those types of positive things we get out of it. There's nothing better.
Let's have your suggestions, Ron, for a brand new AD, and they need to follow Ron's suggestions in order to become a successful director of athletics. What would your two suggestions be?
Part of it goes to the idea that understand that whatever you think the hours are, plan on more. And understand that you need to be willing to work. You've got to be a hard worker and committed. The other thing, it's kind of like you said, I don't know of any junior high athletic directors anywhere near my acquaintance who do anything other than behave as athletic directors in the school. And referring back to the idea of certification and stuff, I think as athletic directors, we have to spend the time growing our knowledge. Again, back to our courses, back to the conferences that are offered to us, where we get to rub elbows with our senior leaders, where you guys have had so much experience and have so much knowledge that we can gain. We need to, an athletic director needs to understand they have to be involved in the organization. not just in their school.
Some great insight. Thank you so much for sharing. We'll wrap it up with this question. Ron, what question should I have asked you that I failed to ask you?
As I looked at that, I don't feel like anything you missed at all. They were all things that had me really thinking, and hopefully I covered them in a way that is beneficial to someone out there.
Well, you did an excellent job. That wraps it up for this edition of the UIAAA Connection. Again, our special guest today has been Ron Gualtier, Certified Athletic Administrator, the Director of Athletics at Mound Fort Junior High in Ogden, Utah. Ron, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
For our listeners, we hope you tune in again next week for another edition of the UIAAA Connection.